take off the oil fill cap. You want to think about things? Drop your pants and cough twice, Porsche. This car does need new tires. This can be redeemed for any of the Porsche snob points at any local country club. What's up, people? Today, I thought we'd go over my Porsche 944 as a buyer's guide. So if you're gonna go out and buy an older sports car, maybe an 80s car, or just about whatever, how do you go about looking at a car, kind of vibing with it, and also divorcing yourself emotionally from the purchase so that you can best assess the car and know if you're making a good purchase and what to look for. So this, I just got a 944 that I'm gonna be fixing up, but it's a half decent car. So I'm gonna go over it in terms of how I look at a car like I did for the first time. Now, obviously this is gonna be Porsche 944 centric because that's what it is. So it'll be most valuable to you 944 people that maybe wanna get one of those or a 924, but all the tips still carry forth if you're gonna buy a used car, especially a used sports car. So let's just walk outside and have at it. Okay, so this particular car, a gentleman told me the deal. It's had like 150,000 miles, kind of an engine rebuild, services and stuff. And from the pictures, it looks like it was generally well kept. So the white one is the one I just got. The red one here belongs to a student of mine, drives it around. So let's go around back, because when I saw the car for the first time, I walked up from behind. I snuck up on it from the rear. Now it's in the garage. So come on back here. Let's just start back here. I know it sounds silly, but this is how I look at them, assess. Now the car's a little bit dirtier because I've been driving it some. I just drove it down here. But first of all, it was in a garage. The gentleman already had another sports car, an MR2. So I could tell he cared for both of them. But what do you see? So when I first started walking up to it, it looked nice. Things were crisp. The taillights are shiny. There's not crap inside of them. Generally speaking, the paint is reflective and look good. Now, unfortunately, we're out here in the sun, so you're not going to see it as well. But on a white car, if the paint is nice and reflective, that says a lot about how they cared for it. Because usually with white cars, people don't take as well care of with them because they kind of look good even if they're not that great. It's harder than a black car to see. So it was shiny. But when I came up to it, now first you don't want to get too excited because this is the car I wanted. This is the color scheme and everything like that. So I was excited, but I got to be chill. And you guys got to be chill, especially for you young people out there buying your first car. Now you're really excited. You saved up your money. You got it. You want to spend it and drive your car. But it's not your car yet, right? You have to make that decision. So you've got to chill out about those emotions. So some of the things you look at, telltale signs are, this may sound crazy, but you get the big vibe, you look at it from the picture, are the small details. Like for instance, this is the flexible rear wing. How does it look? Is there a lot of crap down in here? If you look right here, is there stuff in like drain holes? And then the other thing is too, when you look at it, how does the weather stripping look? Weather stripping is a tip that tells you a lot about the life of a car. Did it sit outside? How loved was it, etc.? You know, did they clean it up? Are the windows nice and clean versus the paint? And also, do you see where it was masked off? And in the case of this car, I can see a little bit of rubbing compound here, if you look carefully. And don't get too close, it won't focus. But I don't see any masked lines where it may have been painted. So I start looking at little things like that because it tells me telltale sign about the car. Also, if you push on it, is it still flexible? Now I do have to say, relating to 80s cars, a lot of them, just because the age of that and how difficult weather stripping is to find or expensive or whatnot, even if your weather stripping is a little bit hard, maybe has a crack or two, don't just discredit the whole car because sometimes that's about as good as it gets for buying an older car. But in general, this one's quite nice. When I looked in the doors, the weather stripping and stuff was pretty nice there too. Everything was smooth. I don't see any paint seams here. The paint looked nice and clean inside. The door jambs are generally rather clean, and it was taken care of. Obviously, I saw the interior, before in the pictures. And you look down here at the rest of it, you can see that the stone guards are a little old. They're a little faded. Of course, the car's from the 80s, and that's to be expected if you want to come around here and look a little more. But you can see the car's been loved. It's got a little bit of a scratch thing going on here, but since it's a single stage, non-metallic white, I can touch that up. Show you in a video coming up when we fix it. The wheels are generally pretty good. I got a little brake dust on them, but these are the originals, and they've done well. You clean them up nicely, they're gonna look pretty good. If you ever wanted to refinish the white paint, you'd be okay. Also, there's no curb rash on them, I noticed. You wanna look for curb rash. How was the car driven? Was it really cared for? Now, an 80s car like this with a big fat sidewall, it's a lot harder to rash it. So, were they rationing it on curbs? Now, something while we're looking at it right here, these are Michelin tires. They look really nice. They were shiny and well cared for, and it's got a lot of tread. But tread doesn't necessarily mean anything if they're really old. Now, these tires, honestly, they need to be replaced. They have a lot of cracking going on here on the sidewall, which just shows the age. for me, if I'm just bopping around town a little bit right now and switching it up, just getting things ready and working on it, I'm not afraid that they're going to explode or do anything horrible, but if they're dry enough to be cracking like this, they're dry enough that they're not going to stick well. And if you guys remember some of my videos in the past, especially speaking with high horsepower cars like the Viper, your tires are the biggest safety feature. So you don't want to be driving around on crappy old, mostly original looking tires. It's a safety thing. So I do want to point out that this car does need new tires. Something to point out. So a little bit of a detractor because of course I got to spend money on, but didn't turn me off to the car. Obviously the car's been cared for well enough that if the tires had lasted that long, you know, it potentially was driven a little bit, but not too much, but it was cared for and it stood the test of time and just not used and abused. So something to think of there. Now, when I'm looking down the side of it, when you come in, you want to look down the side of cars at a low incidence angle like this, because it's the easiest way to see if there's car door dings and also to see if body lines still match up well. If the car's been in a wreck, if this line is off or the door is off, something like that. Now keep in mind, especially older cars and when they're a little less expensive, you know, 944s are a great budget car. You can't expect too much, okay? So you have to weigh all those options. But in general, is it a good car? Was it looked after well? And this one's saying to me, it's all original paint or mostly, and there's no car door dings and everything lines up well. So that makes me feel real good that it's a pretty fresh car and I can give it some nice love. So I look in here, the door open and closes really well. The weather stripping stuck to it a little bit here, and you can see where the imprint is, but I can clean that up. It's no big deal. And then if I shut the door, let's see, shuts nicely. Maybe put a little bit of lube on the hinges or the stoppers there, but in general, everything's great like that. Also, feel the door handles on an older car. Now these particular door handles are identical to what was on basically all the Volkswagen in the 1980s too. You know, Foxes, Jettas, Passats, Scirocco's, Golfs, all that stuff, you name it. And they can get crappy, but it opens and shuts perfectly. Everything's fresh feeling. So that's another good sign of how it has lived. You know, if it's a little weak or smushy, you can fix it if you take the door panels off and get to it. But if it's fresh, that gives you a clue that something good's going on here. So the next thing, when I open it up, and you want to pay attention to your glass. Is it scratched up? Is there overspraying crap on it? What's going on? You can also look here like, is the windshield wiper any good? Is it soft? Is it gone? Is it all scratched because they never replaced it? Things like that. Now this car obviously has the removable sunroof. And on this one, it has the electronic thing, goes open and close. I could tell that the person who owned it replaced the weather stripping and did a really good job. It's nice weather stripping here and it fit perfectly. So that made me feel also pretty good about buying the car. But if you come on and look inside, and I'll go in through the other way so you can see. Now the seats, they leave a little bit to be desired, but there's some positives with them as well. These particular seats have the Porsche kind of script jacquard fabric. Fabric's really nice. It feels cooler in the summer and warmer in the winter. Leather's not everything it's cracked up to be. However, these are the seats that are a little less sporty and they're kind of squished down over the years. So the bolsters are flatter here and here, and they're also vinyl. They're not leather. So the seats are okay. You can tell that the seam has split here. And you want to look at this carefully. Come on in and let's take a peek. This vinyl degrades over time. And what actually happened is the vinyl ripped at the thread seam right here, just like tearing off a lottery ticket or something, you know, where it's perforated. So it tears over time, but the fabric's in good condition. So actually, this seat I could take to, you know, an old school upholstery guy, and what he can actually do is unthread it, and he can replace these, what they call panel of this vinyl, and save the fabric. And it wouldn't cost too much money. He might just have 100, 150 bucks in each panel. So you'd have a little bit of money in it, but you could save this fabric. I was thinking potentially of redoing the seat with my Porsche fabric I have left over, just because I kind of want to be funky, and the car is white with white Fuchs wheels, so why not? But then the Porsche people freak out that it's Porsche script, oh my gosh, and you have to keep that. Okay, I digress. But the carpet generally is pretty nice. Obviously, it's an older 80s car, and you can see the floor mats here. Let's look underneath. Oh, it's a little dirty. Okay, it's got some sand and stuff that could have been vacuumed, but not the worst I've ever seen. And the carpet underneath looks pretty good, pretty good. It's got some sand in it, so it's probably been to the beach and had some nice days. I might, when I see sand like that, I might check the air filter just to make sure it's not sucking sand. So you want to think about things. If you see one thing somewhere, you want to make sure it's not screwing something else up somewhere else. But if you, again, can you see okay right now, Tyler? Okay. It's got the original Porsche steering wheel on it, much like was in the 928. Now, this is something else that makes me feel really good about this car. If you remember the 928, when I was drinking adult apple juice and my wife was cutting my hair, very silly, funny video if you guys want to look it up. I was recovering the same steering wheel with brand new leather because the leather got so hot and shrank that it split. This is the original leather on the steering wheel. And if you look, all the stitching is still intact. It still has some softness and suppleness. So this steering wheel, as long as you take care of it and don't just park it in the blazing desert sun, the original steering wheel is pretty nice. And that's a good sign for me. I generally like to put in Momo steering wheels and stuff, but this is the kind of the coolest Porsche steering wheel. It's lightweight, it feels great, so I'm gonna leave it. Also, this car is the one that has cruise control, and I tested it and it actually works. So that's kind of nice. The shifter's sloppy. It needs a new shifter. This is all play right here, but that's a pretty easy thing to replace if you want to do the short shift kit. Real nice fan gave me a short shift kit in my last car, and then I felt bad I sold it, so I actually ordered a new shifter and short shift kit for this one, the same one. I really appreciated that. But the boot is supple. It's nice. Now, this car does have a cracked dash, and then whoever put this cover on used a big darn piece of like silicone glue. I think I can peel this off, but this dashboard's going to need some love. Recovered, or I just make do with this dash cover, which, you know, honestly, it's not the worst thing in the world. I don't hate it. And the thing that I kind of like about this dash cover, and it's sort of popping off a lot right now, the thing I kind of like about this is I can park this outside in the sun and I'm not concerned about wrecking my dashboard. So it's sort of not the worst thing in the world. It kind of makes the utility of owning it not bad. You can also look, is the clock working? This one's actually working. It's on time. That's amazing. You know, of course, we got the cassette player and all that. So the next thing I'm gonna do, before I get too excited and wanna drive it, you just kind of look at the interior. If you wanna come down and look up, let's look at you gotta look at the things people don't normally look at. Like, what condition are the seats in? What condition are the weather seals, the carpet, and believe it or not, the headliner. And this headliner is real nice. It doesn't seem to be sagging anywhere. So apparently the car has lived in a good climate its whole life. The sun visors sort of degrade, the foam inside degrades. Don't feel too bad about that. That happens to basically all of them. But those are the things that tell me generally this is a pretty good car. I would love to see the dashboard not have this cover and be less cracked, and I would love to see the seats not be split. But this can be fixed with relative ease at Upholstery Guy. And what are you gonna do with the dashboard? Also, I bought the car for what I thought was a reasonable amount of money, and it's the exact color combination I wanted that was pretty darn rare. So let's go under the hood. I'm gonna go ahead and pop that. And we'll go on to that before we kind of get into driving and such. So, you know, you wanna pay attention when you pop hood and open doors. It pulled nice, it wasn't too tight, and it popped open the way it should. So just gonna open this up. The shocks work, that's fine. Now we're gonna look and we're gonna see some of the negative things. You know, the foam is degrading. That happens to all of them. This is sort of not completely gone yet. I'd either rather it be totally intact or totally gone, which means I'm gonna have to make a mess to get rid of it. You don't really need the foam. It's sort of like insulation of noise more. The heat's not really gonna bother stuff, but you know, I have to clean that up. I also see that the valley up here, there's nothing to protect it. So, you know, it's got some tree debris in here for when you park it outside, and it's kind of gross, so I'm gonna have to wash this out. But I don't see any rust, I don't see any issues, and this is the little drain port so water can get out. You wanna make sure this is open. If it was full of water, you know, you're gonna need to get the water out, but if it's not rusting, that's not the worst thing in the world. I can also see the shock towers here. There's nothing crazy going on. They're old. It's not like it's special shocks or something in here, but they're there. Here's the cruise control, it's in board. The battery looks all right. You can see the life of the battery, although these people never pop the little things to tell you how old it is. But in general, it looks good. And you'll get an idea for how well the battery works when you start it up. Also, for anybody going to look at a new car or a used car to buy, I usually request don't start the car that day. I wanna hear and feel what it's like to start up cold. Because if you got a car that doesn't want to start up cold, and the owner maybe knew that, they start it up, get it warmed up a little bit, it may act real nice for you, but you never get the opportunity to test drive it cold. So just a little tip, and this car gave me no thoughts that would be any kind of issues. Obviously it's got pop-up headlights, so you want to test that, make sure they're working reasonably well. They're not that hard to fix, but you know, it's something you'd have to fix, so don't forget about that. Now, with any car, you want to listen for mechanical noises, clattering, clunking, paying attention to oil pressure, does it overheat, etc., right? With any cars. You don't have to freak out anything overly special with the 944. Obviously, the timing belts, the one for the camshaft as well as the balance shafts, are very important on this engine. If you drive the car and you feel a hell of a lot of vibration at like a little over 4,000 RPMs, and I mean a heck of a lot, the balance shafts might not be timed correctly, which is not that big of a deal to change, but you're gonna wanna know before you buy it if that was the case. This isn't the case, generally pretty good. Obviously you need to know on a 944, and especially Volkswagens of the era, they do like to vibrate when they're cold at idle. They just do, and kind of no matter what motor mounts you have. So if the car's kind of shaky at idle and then when it warms up it's a little better, realize it's an 80s car, it's 4-cylinder, it's got a big thumping 4-cylinder, and it's a little shaky, it's a little vibraty. So don't expect this to be like a new Rolls Royce or something. Just saying like that. You got to know the difference between this is really bad or hey, this is just kind of its character. Just word of the wise there. The other thing you want to look for, oil leaks, water leaks, etc. Is there a puddle under the car? Where is it coming from? You can look underneath and see, are there drips? Some things are acceptable if it's just a teeny tiny bit over time, or if it's a lot. Does the car look soaked underneath? Where is it coming from? If you remember on my red 944, on that build, my cam housing was leaking oil, was coming down over here and sort of soaking. This one is not really leaking oil. I do see a little bit of residue around here where the dirt's clinging to it, but it's not saying to me there's a big leak. What I'm seeing here tells me no problem to drive it as is. I will tell you though, this is the power steering reservoir, and Tyler agreed, that's the guy that's being the camera guy right now. They like to kind of seep and leak and stuff. So the dirt that I see here is all collecting is because of a slightly leaky power steering fluid. It's a little skunky, so I'm gonna clean this up and then see where the leak's coming from in the future and see what I can do. But otherwise, it's not a massive leak. It's just kind of a little thing over time. It's not horrific. It's not getting on the headers. I'm not that worried. Something that I can look after later. With the 944 also, if you look right down here, guys, come on over here, you can see this is the water pump. And this is a later one, so it's obviously been done sometime in the past. Now this car was fortunate enough to have records, okay? And records are good, but you still have to use your eyes and feel it out and pay attention when you're buying a car. Records are nice, but they don't mean everything in the world to me when I buy a car. I just assess the car for what it is, and I think, you know, if you guys get smart, you can too. Now, ideally, if I didn't know the owner and I didn't have a good enough comfort level, and frankly, I didn't have enough comfort level as my own personal mechanic, I would suggest that you, if you know what you're doing, or somebody that does, uses a 10mm wrench and just open this timing belt cover right here. You can do that without taking anything else off and just see what the timing belts look like. Are they relatively fresh looking? Can you still see the markings on them? Do they have any cracks? Are they flopping around loose or over tight? Just pay attention and it'll give you a clue, but you can do that with a 10mm wrench pretty darn easily. You know, the cap and rotor look rather fresh, the spark plug wires and everything too. So generally this is a well looked after car. I can also tell that this aluminum part here has been polished. That's not the way they looked. So somebody put a little extra care in, and that's extra care without chotching out the car. And what I mean to say is by chotching out the car, the people are like, oh, I'm gonna paint my intake runners yellow, and I'm gonna paint my cam box red. It's like, okay, everybody chillax. So generally speaking, people that are really, really, really good at doing motors don't do fancy, glitzy sort of hot rod boomer tricks in the engine bay of a car like this. They sort of just let it be aluminum. Maybe they polish it, you know? So I'm not real into tricks like that. I don't think they look real good, and it sometimes makes me think the people working out might have been kind of newbies. Just a thought, just keep that under your hat. It's not like an absolute rule, it's just something to think of. This little sprocket guy here, or excuse me, it's a, what do you call it, pulley, is round. This is an aftermarket piece. This is to make the throttle pedal a little snappier on its ratio. I like those. That's just a nice little thing they did for it. Now here's something you always want to do with a water-cooled car. Take off the oil fill cap and look to see if you see froth. You know, this kind of residue, this sort of rusty residue that's dry, is sort of the byproduct of oils, vapors, and hydrocarbons and all. But if you see white milky froth or a lot of vapor or something, it could say that you have a head gasket that's starting to go, or in the case of a 944, that its oil-water heat exchanger has seals that are going bad. And that's one clue. So if you're getting water in your oil, that's bad, okay? If you're getting a little bit, when the oil temperature is above 212 degrees Fahrenheit, it'll boil off and go away as steam. So if there's a little bit from starting and stopping the car from condensation, okay, you can have that from condensation. But if you drive for a good while, get everything nice and hot and it doesn't go away, it could mean you have something with a head gasket or something else going. Now, this doesn't have that. But there's one other way in a 944 to know if your oil-water heat exchanger is going. Now, the reason I say that's important is because you don't want your oil and water mixing. If you get water in your oil, a lot of it, water's heavier than oil, it goes down to the bottom. It gets sucked up by the oil pump and goes in your bearings. And let's just say Mobil 1 and Pennzoil and Valvoline are not putting water for your engines, okay? You're gonna ruin it. So that's really bad. I just want you guys to realize that. But the heat exchanger is down there in a somewhat difficult to get to area. You have to take off the headers and the exhaust system and remove a bunch of stuff in your oil filter and need a little tool to do it. You're gonna spend less than $100 in seals and a little alignment tool. It's kind of a pain in the butt to do. And on an older car like this, you might have to. Now on this car, the other way to tell if that might be happening is when it's cold or cold enough, you open your coolant tank. Why is mine not opening? Because I'm dumb, that's why. You open it up and you look for oil residue. And in this one, there is a little oil residue. And you can actually see here at the top line, there's kind of a skunky line right here, like right at the edge. So if you get a little bit of oil getting into your coolant system, it's gonna end up at the top because it's gonna wanna float and you'll see it come up here. So there's a little bit of residue, and that happened in the past. The car was rebuilt and whatnot. So we tend to think that that thing needs to be rebuilt. I'm almost not entirely sure based on the records now.
Somebody might not have shimmed it right. They've got little tiny shims.
Oh, okay. So you still think we should just do it?
Always safe.
Might as well do it. Well, it'll be a good video for you guys to see how to do that. So I think we're gonna do that. I don't relish the thought, but of course it goes really bad. You could be driving far, far away and be putting a bunch of coolant in your oil, sucking your bearings and destroying your motor, and nobody wants to do that. That's one of those things that like Porsche snobs and like expensive mechanics like to scare you, like they're starting this new scary religion. You know what I mean? And like, this is the way it's gonna be. You will burn forever in eternity if you don't spend lots of money with records and timing belts with magic mechanics of the gods from Stuttgart. Yeah, it doesn't have to be that way. But it's a job that's not really that fun to do, and you gotta do it right. So it's something to pay attention to and just take into account when you're buying a car and the cost, okay? Not necessarily to beat up an owner for, and you need to know what you're looking at. Don't just be like, well, I heard this on a YouTube channel and I'm gonna beat you up. And like, you know, like just, you know, use the information intelligently. But these are the things you wanna pay attention to in it, because obviously you wanna last your car for a long time. Tyler, how many miles you got on your car?
300,000.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard that, but Tyler's got 300,000 miles on his car, and it runs great. He drives it all over the place. So if you take care of your car and do a good job with the engine and oil and services and stuff, there's no reason why you can't put hundreds of thousands of miles on a car like this, which is really cool and a really rewarding thing. Also, you can look at your brake fluid, make sure it's the right level. This is a little dark, so it probably needs to be flushed. The brakes do work really well. I can also see here, if you look, on the vacuum booster, the paint is sort of worn off down here, which tells me at one point brake fluid has leaked down there, because brake fluid will eat paint. You got to keep it the heck away from your paint on your car. It'll ruin it. But that very easily could have happened from somebody spilling it, putting some in, versus it leaking. So just look carefully. Is it leaking from the seals? Is there something wrong before you do that? Of course, you always want to check your oil, see what's going on. How dark does it look? This is about 60% up of the way. It's fine. It's a little dark, so looks like could stand a change oil sometime, but doesn't freak me out. Of course, with a new car, I like to have fresh fluids. I'm gonna drive it a lot, of course, too. So that's something. So generally, I feel really good about this car. It looks like it's been kept up well. I have some records to back it up. The little things that are seeping with oil are not so bad. It's not leaving puddles. There's no leaking. I don't smell antifreeze. You know, the coolant hoses look supple and decent, and the what the heck do you call them? The hose clamps even look decent. Like, the thing has been maintained respectably, okay? And it feels that way too. So that's just something I want to throw that out there when you guys are looking at it. Now, you can slam it or whatever if you're looking at a car and the guy cares. Ask him what they want to do. Don't push down out here like that. You can start denting it. I did this sort of like right on the edge. I don't like slamming things if I don't have to, but sometimes on like spindly Ferrari hoods, and sometimes you slam them. And here's a word of the wise. Like, you got to be really smart with things if you don't know. On Ferrari 308s, on the front hood, it's real spindly. I think it's like aluminum over steel frame. They have something that looks like a gas shock on it, which on any other car you just push down. But it's not a gas shock, it's a fake. It's got a little button you push to release it so you can put it down nicely. But the problem with those Ferraris are everybody thinks the gas strut, and if you just go to push it down, you like bend and like trash the hood. It's kind of like a Ducati with the kickstands that just automatically go up. You don't have to kick. So some idiot sits on a Ducati from that air and lifts it up. The kickstand goes up, and they go to put it down and then drop the bike. So that's why you want to, if you don't already know something, just be respectful and sometimes ask, because it's better to err on the side of good judgment. Let's go around back and look in the trunk area, kind of what to go over with that. The other thing today, I'm not going to drive it. This is just a looking over the car one. And then my next video on buying a new car, like a new used car, will be driving it and assessing it that way. So when I open it up, I'm gonna look, obviously I can see how is the weather stripping doing here? How are the hinges? Are they rusty? Are they skunky? Does it open and close well? You know, weather stripping looks pretty decent. The other thing is the glass hatch on 944s will come unbonded over time. If you just go buy a super hefty shock like this from AutoZone and don't get the one with the right amount of pressure, that pressure, when you shut the hatch, is always pushing on this, forever pushing on it. And it can actually lead to the glass starting to come unbonded up here. So you want to look carefully at your glass, stay right there. You want to look carefully at your glass here and see, in a more extreme circumstance, the metal framework here sort of kind of comes forward and the glass wants to start escaping.
That's what's happening on mine.
Oh, is it? Let's go look at yours. Oh, I do see it here. This has sort of moved back because I can see the line where, oh, here, look, it's already sort of, so your glass is kind of escaping right here. And a lot over there. Let's look at that. Okay.
How crappy.
Okay, so this is not ideal. You can fix this. It's just going to take some doing, okay? Thank you, Tyler, for being a helpful example. I feel bad now. Okay, so anyway, I actually don't remember. Oh, also shout out to my buddy Phil. That when I was doing the 928, he gave me this Porsche key fob, and he says that this can be redeemed for any of the Porsche snob points at any local country club or where they play the Masters, apparently. I don't know this Porsche snob stuff. Okay, so anyway, so, you know, generally speaking, the carpet is always faded in the back of this because it's got a massive glass and UV rays are gonna do that. I look to see how that goes down, everything's fine. There's some parts. This is the privacy shield that's supposed to be on the back of the seats there that I just pushed back. It got pulled out one day and then didn't want to retract. So he nicely removed it, and it feels like the whole spring mechanism is screwed up, clearly. So what I'm gonna do in a future video, we're gonna see if we can save this because, you know, the material here is nice, all the parts are nice, and we should be able to reattach it, but it's lost its ability to retract, which makes it sort of worthless. So we gotta fix that. Also, this, if I'm not mistaken, is the cover for when you take the sunroof off and you wanna put it in the trunk. This is in good shape, that's quite nice. So I guess if you're gonna drive a long way with it off and you wanted to put some stuff in your trunk or on top of it, you could use this. Typically when I take it off, I'm not really doing anything crazy and I just kind of put it in the trunk because I don't have a lot of stuff with me, but we can do that. Also, the gentleman gave me new cooling fans because the bearings in the old one were, actually I bought these, but he sourced them for me, because the bearings were starting to make noise, so I appreciated him noticing that. Here's the front license plate bracket, which I'm not gonna use in Ohio, and here is the old throttle cam, which sucks. It's made for like super noobs, but let's be honest, a 944 doesn't make that much power anyway, so you want the snappier throttle cam. And it looks like it's got another door handle, which I don't really need because the door handles on this work great. So next thing, come on in. It's got snaps. You want to be nice to the snaps when you're popping them loose. Just don't go yanking on the carpet and potentially busting them out of the carpet. Sometimes those snaps can be hard to get on. You don't want to screw it up. So you want to be nice and just deliberate when you're taking that loose. So folding these guys over. This is a little warped, but that happens to them. You get humidity and things back here. But I'm gonna sort of open this up. We're gonna telltale. It's sort of like, drop your pants and cough twice, Porsche. Okay, so a couple things. Space Saver tire looks really good. It's held down. Maybe a little corrosion, a little skunky, but in general, really nice. These things, they're supposed to be a compressor, which poofs this up if you ever need it. And there's a compressor right here, a little skunky, looks like it got water in it. I don't think that's like an original Porsche one. I don't see anything that leads me to believe that, but it is kind of a cool and period one. The box is kind of shot because clearly there's gotten some water down there in one time. We'll look in there, but we'll see. Yes, so 80s. Oh, it's made in Canada. I don't know if that's good. I don't mean that as a dig. I just think it's funny. I don't know if that means anything. It's probably better than being made in Italy. All right, so come on down here. Let's look down inside these if you can find. Looks like there's some jumper cables. That could be a good or bad sign, depending on how much they've been used. Doesn't look like they've been used, so probably a good sign. Oh, a Porsche bottle. It says Scheibenreiniger. I don't know what that means. Oh, window cleaner is my guess. It's empty, but I could put Windex in it. Shining Reiniger. Okay. Oh, Porsche toolkit. Oh my gosh, if this was a Ferrari, rich people would lose their minds over it. I am investing heavily in original toolkits. forget IBM and Tesla stocks. Okay, anyway. So the tools all look nice. It's kind of a thought. They're not all rusty. They're not junk. So that tells you the car's had probably a pretty good life, and they're still here. So that's nice too. Good signs when you're buying a car. Just things to take into consideration and just generally give you a pretty good feel. Looks like you replaced the light bulb at one point, and looks like there's some other wheel nuts here. These are weird. What in the heck is going on with this? Oh, that's weird. Okay, cool. That's a correct Porsche wheel nut, I believe, which are pretty lightweight. They're made out of an alloy, and these are steel. So I don't know what's going on with this exactly, but we've got them. They're spares. Here they are. Now, if you look down in there, come on over here, just look straight down in the pockets. If it's gonna rust, you might see it down here. If it's been hit or something, you're gonna see it. If there's skunkiness down here because a little bit of water, don't freak out. Porsche galvanized their bodies, so it's actually really hard to make one of these cars rust. If you see a rusty 944, it's had a hard life. Just keep that in mind. These cars generally fare really well, and that's a reason why if you reasonably care for them, you can drive them all year round, even in the winter, because it's hard to make them rust, so I like that. So some water's gotten in here at a time. Maybe the hatch leaked, or maybe it was from this hole here, but there is a weep hole so it can drain out in this one. And you can also see if your taillights fill with water, that's kind of a telltale sign that it's leaking down in there. As another note, if you find in your Porsche, if it's been outside, you wouldn't see this if it was in the garage, but if like your passenger floor gets wet and there's water in it, there is a drain hole here in this crack here and over there. And if they get plugged up, somehow it ends up getting the water on your floor. And a way to fix that is actually to take an air compressor and kind of go and blow out whatever crap is in there. I learned that from Tyler behind the camera. So that is basically what it is when you look it over. Obviously, for me, I just look at the car, assess it, start up, listen to it, listen to the owner. How much do they know? What do they know? And who are you getting it from? And you create a story. You form like, is this the car for you? You know, or is it one that you can live with or make be what you want? You know, are you looking for a particular combination? What are you willing to accept? The other thing is always when you go buy a car, do not be afraid to walk away and just be like, you know, I need time to think on it or something like that. But at the same time too, don't waste a seller's time. When I go to purchase a car, and with this one, I assess the car from afar, talk to the guy, talk to the details, look at the picture, and keep in mind I have some experience with it. So I formed an opinion on it, a good enough opinion that I think I know what it was and I could make an offer. And I said, look, let's make a deal, and I will bring cash and be ready to buy it, assuming the car is what you say it is, and I'm not going to jerk you around. The other thing is, if you do that, don't be one of those jerkwads that agree to a price to get somebody there and waste their time and then show up and then try to beat them up as a tactic. You know, if you show up and you see a car and it really was not what they represented as, it's okay to negotiate, but don't do that as a dirty trick. I don't like that. And there's one other note, if you look right here, just something little to replace. There is a weather stripping seal around the keyhole that needs to be replaced so I don't get water in there. Not the worst thing in the world, something easy to do, and he pointed it out as well, so I don't feel bad. Beyond that, when you're looking at a car, you got to look for the telltale signs if it's been hit and fixed. You know, do things line up? Do they match up? When you're looking down under the carpet in the back, or when you're looking at the engine bay, can you see where it's been fixed and patched up? You know, if a car's had a bit of a wreck and it's been painted, everything's really nice, it doesn't bother me, especially on something like this that isn't some like insane six-figure investment car where people get pedantic and psychotic about that. Just, has it been fixed well? Has it been maintained well? And then lastly, and the biggest thing is, if we get down low, let's look under it one last time here to see what's going on down low. And we'll look underneath it. This is where you're gonna see a lot of stuff, okay? The transaxle's obviously been seeping a little bit. It's got dirt, but it's not leaking. It's not horrific. Doesn't make me feel bad. And generally, it's quite clean up here. I can see the half shaft here is brand new. It's got brand new CV joints, the whole axle. That makes me feel real good that the car's been looked after well. That one's older. Maybe it'll go sometime, but hey, that's the whole thing about used cars. Has the original stock exhaust system on it, no leaks. It's a little boring because it's quiet, but it's a very nice car. And then beyond that, I'm not seeing any rust. I'm not seeing places where somebody jacked it up badly and smushed anything. And I'm seeing basically all of the original kind of weather coating stuff intact, the undercoating and all that jazz. The shocks look decent. And generally, it's a pretty good car. Obviously used, obviously seen some miles, but given the condition it's in and how it presents, it's obviously been loved and looked after well. So in the next video, I'm gonna drive it and show you guys what to look for when you're buying a new used car for you, or most especially a 944. I hope you enjoyed this, and then after that, we're gonna get to work on it and make it right, but I've been enjoying driving it around. Really wanna say thank you to the owner I bought it from. He actually didn't have it advertised, but when he heard that I wanted this combination after a VinWiki story a long time ago, he reached out to me and I kept in contact. I started looking really hard and we finally made a deal. So I'm really excited because it's gonna be a long-term car for me. And again, all you 944 fans out there, we gotta start the no snob Porsche squad. Yes, 944s only, but we might let in a couple 924s or 928s or Scirocco or something. But if you wanna be cool in the club, you have to work on the car yourself. If you pay somebody to work on your car, well, then you might have to pay to get in the club. I don't know. We'll have fun with it, but I am serious about that. A couple of people reached out to me, said they wanted to like lead that, which could be helpful, and a whole lot of people want to do it. So I say we have fun with 944s, start our own squad. It's not a club. Club's always the wrong connotation. We're gonna drive, we're gonna have fun, support the community, but not inflate the prices. Don't do that, not cool. Let's have fun. So I'll see you guys next time.